Alberta makes a defiant stand. Referendum, vote LOOMS. What this means for Canada's future. Alberta is entering uncharted political territory, and the tremors could ripple across the entire nation. Premier Danielle Smith's government has just introduced a game-changing adjustment to provincial referendum rules, dramatically reducing the threshold required to trigger a vote from roughly 600,000 signatures to just 120,000. This decision has ignited passionate debate, speculation, and, for some, hope for a radical political reset. Though not a direct call for secession, this move undeniably opens the door for Alberta to explore a future outside of the Canadian Federation. This isn't a spur-of-the-moment rebellion, it's a strategic shift years in the making. For many Albertans, frustration with Ottawa isn't just about politics, it's about principle, fairness, and identity. They believe Alberta's vital role in powering the Canadian economy is met not with gratitude or partnership, but with regulation, scorn, and neglect. The latest federal election only reinforced this perception, with few policies addressing the region's unique concerns and an emerging sense among Westerners that the system is not just flawed, but broken beyond repair. Premier Smith's rule change is more than administrative tinkering. It's a bold maneuver to empower citizens to shape the future themselves. A lower threshold means that a passionate, organized group can launch a province-wide referendum campaign with relative ease. Should such a referendum pass, even by a single percentage point, the federal government would be legally compelled to negotiate under the terms laid out by the 1998 Supreme Court ruling on Quebec's referendum. This is not symbolic posturing. It's a real and escalating challenge to the existing structure of Confederation. This momentum is fueled by a long-standing and deepening sense of Western alienation. For decades, Alberta has felt sidelined in national conversations dominated by the interests of Ontario and Quebec. From restrictive energy policies to environmental regulations perceived as hostile to Alberta's oil and gas sector, many residents feel Ottawa's decisions actively undermine their prosperity. Equalization payments are a perennial flashpoint, with Albertans often contributing more in federal taxes than they receive in return, subsidizing provinces that are sometimes seen as hostile to Alberta's core industries. The recent eruption of interest in Alberta's independence movement is impossible to ignore. A change.org petition advocating for separation exploded from 120,000 to over 200,000 signatures in just 24 hours. While this doesn't in itself trigger any official action, it serves as a vital organizational tool, connecting a network of like-minded citizens, catalyzing discussion, and building the infrastructure for a coordinated campaign. Petition organizers have emphasized that their approach is deliberate and strategic, consciously avoiding the pitfalls of Quebec's rushed and poorly framed referendum in 1995. Alberta's movement is grounded in methodical preparation rather than emotional fervor, and the stakes are enormous. A failed referendum could severely damage the cause for years, if not decades. This is why political commentators like Corey Morgan and constitutional lawyer Keith Wilson are urging organizers to tread carefully, ensuring that public sentiment is solidly in their corner before taking the plunge. Current polling indicates that about 30% to 40% of Albertans support separation, with the number even higher among conservative voters. These figures are not yet at a tipping point, but they are significantly higher than they were even a few years ago. The trajectory is clear. Public frustration is growing, and the independence movement is no longer fringe. It's a force to be reckoned with. Premier Smith's government has been shrewd in its handling of the issue. Rather than issuing provocative declarations, Smith has empowered Albertans to take the lead, positioning herself as a listener rather than a provocateur. This grassroots-first approach makes the movement feel more authentic and shields the government from accusations of political opportunism. The decentralized nature of the campaign also makes it harder for Ottawa or the mainstream media to dismiss it as a vanity project of a single politician. At the national level, the implications are seismic. The newly anointed Liberal leader, Mark Carney, inherits a fractured federation with tensions at a boiling point. His ability or inability to address Western grievances could determine whether Canada begins to unravel. Carney represents much of what Alberta's independence supporters distrust, elite-based street economics, a heavy focus on climate policy, and a technocratic worldview seen as disconnected from the lived experiences of ordinary Westerners. While Carney may attempt outreach, many Albertans are skeptical that a man viewed as a globalist insider can genuinely understand or prioritize Alberta's needs. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre walks a delicate line. As a federalist, he has made clear that he supports a united Canada. But he has also vocally acknowledged the deep sense of betrayal felt in the West. His promises to eliminate the carbon tax, unleash resource development, and return more autonomy to provinces resonate strongly in Alberta. While Poilievre isn't endorsing separation, his rhetoric empowers those who feel that Alberta is fighting an uphill battle under the current system. If Ottawa doesn't respond meaningfully, Poilievre's own political capital could become a catalyst, intentionally or not, for the separatist cause. The potential legal ramifications of a successful referendum are staggering. Should Albertans vote yes to separation with even 50% plus one, the federal government would be constitutionally obligated to negotiate the terms of separation. These negotiations would be unprecedented in Canadian history, involving complex issues ranging from control of natural resources and military assets to debt division and First Nations treaties. Indigenous leaders have already signaled that their participation in such discussions would be non-negotiable. Some bands may resist Alberta's separation entirely, asserting that their treaties are with the Crown and not subject to provincial decisions. This could ignite a legal and jurisdictional quagmire that would take years, if not decades, to unravel. And Alberta wouldn't be the only province watching closely. Saskatchewan has historically shared many of Alberta's grievances and could be inclined to follow suit. Manitoba, with its blend of Western identity and economic links to Ontario, might find itself torn between allegiances. Even British Columbia, long considered a distinct political culture, could see parts of its interior align more closely with a newly independent Alberta than with coastal urban centers. The economic consequences would be equally profound. Alberta leaving Confederation would remove one of the country's most productive economic engines from the Federation. The Canadian dollar could face sharp volatility. Federal transfer programs would be thrown into disarray. Trade, pipelines, immigration, and defense would all have to be renegotiated from scratch. The psychological impact on Canadian identity would be no less dramatic. A country that prides itself on its unity and diversity would be forced to confront the possibility that its current model no longer works. Critics argue that independence would create more problems than it solves, plunging Alberta into legal limbo, economic uncertainty, and diplomatic isolation. Others argue that it is a necessary wake-up call, a final effort to force structural reform before the province is consumed by perpetual dissatisfaction and decline. Regardless of where one stands, the fact that this debate is gaining traction reflects a serious failure of national leadership. For too long, Western voices have been placated with platitudes rather than listened to. Now, those voices are demanding action, and they're not waiting for permission. Alberta's potential referendum is not just about one province's future. It's about the future of Canada itself. As the rest of the country watches nervously, one thing is clear: the days of ignoring the West are over. The political and constitutional implications of Alberta's next steps could reshape Confederation or tear it apart. The countdown has begun, and the country's leaders must decide whether to meet the challenge with vision and humility, or risk losing the very fabric of the nation they claim to represent.